Hello and welcome to a new episode on Sadhana World Foundation. Recently, I came across a story that left a deep impression on my mind. A traveler was visiting to a king's palace. The king's court was in order. The queen was seated on a throne, and so was the king. Since this traveler was from a different place, didn't know who the king and the queen were. This gentleman asked someone in the court, pointing towards the queen, and asked who she was. The person replied that she is the wife of the king. And the story goes on. When I read this statement, she is the wife of the king, it struck me. The queen is being identified as someone else's something. What happens to this person's talent? What happens to this person's passion, purpose? That set me thinking. There are several roles we play as people in this world. We are a parent, we are a child, we are a mentor, we are a boss, we are a leader. Sometimes we are the protector, sometimes we are the caregiver, sometimes we are the fixer of all the problems that someone else makes around us, and so on. We get identified as a particular personality. But is that who we are? This is a bit of an identity crisis for all of us, isn't it? So I started thinking a little deeper into it. I thought it is important that we have roles in our society. These roles are connected with certain norms and it defines our behaviors. It sets expectations from people around us. But it's a fact that we play multiple roles. And it's important that the roles are not permanent. Imagine that someone who feels that he is very strong. What runs in his mind? He never wants to lose. He cannot think of a situation where he comes across as weak or vulnerable. He cannot take criticisms. Think of a person who takes on the role of protector. The person thinks that he cannot take rest, he has to protect everybody around him. It's like 24/7 security guard for everybody around. Think of the role of a father who thinks that he is taking care of everyone in the family. What happens to a father's life? Probably he is running and one day he just drops. That's what happens if all of us attach too much to the roles that we play. I felt it's very, very important that we understand the impact of holding an identity and playing multiple roles. We all come across such people around us, isn't it? We would have seen people who play the role of a fixer very well. They clean up everybody's mess. When we ask them to go and clean up things, they tidy up the whole thing so nicely. But ask that person to play the role of a builder. You start from the scratch. They struggle. They struggle to change the role from being a fixer to that of a builder. But the question is, are we born as a fixer? Are we born as a builder? Or we learn to be a builder, we learn to be a fixer? I think the latter is true. We learn how to become a good builder. We also learn how to be a good fixer. The moment we attach ourselves too much with a particular identity, then we get stuck there. We can't come out of it. Think of a situation when somebody loses one's job title. And if that person is attached too much, is defined, is identified as that job title, what happens to that person? He or she can't give up his chair, isn't it? Think of a parent who deeply holds the identity of being a parent. What happens when the child has to relocate, or the child marries, or the child gets into a new home? The parent suddenly feels emptiness, loneliness, being betrayed, being disappointed, and so on and so forth. It happens all around us, isn't it? It's part of our day-to-day lives. I think the root is pretty much about how we learn to take new roles and move from one role to the other. It's easier said than done. I think all of us must learn this from our schools and colleges, from our homes and families. And let's look at our ancient texts. Let's start with Srimad Bhagavad Gita. There, the friend, philosopher and guide of Arjun, Lord Sri Krishna, advises Arjun to practice swadharma, that means one's own duty. And he says that swadharma doesn't define who you are. Roles do not define who you are. You are a warrior, you are a brother, you are a son, you are a husband, you are many things. But don't try to take too much of pride in the fact that you are a great warrior or a great son or a great father. In the Mahabharata, there are detailed episodes, detailed description of these relationships. When Arjun loses his son Abhimanyu, the kind of grief that he goes through and how he is helped by his friend to come out of that grief in a moment. So the concept of nishkama karma is explained beautifully in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. What it says is that play your role well, do your duty intensely. However, do not attach yourself with that role. You are not what the role is. Beautifully described. Similarly, think of Buddhism. In Buddhist philosophy, it says that the role that we play is like the costume that we use. We must use costume because those costumes are nice and they are required for our day-to-day life. But we must shed the costume when it is required. Similarly, in the Upanishads, there is a concept of neti, which means you are not this, you are not that. What it means is that you are not your name, you are not your job title, you are not the adjectives that the whole world refers you as. You are different than the role that you are holding. Ladies and gentlemen, my dear children, think of this as a very profound and deep lesson and ask yourself what will happen when the role goes away from us. When we as a father, we as a mother, we as a son, we as a brother, we as a sister, or we as a teacher or a doctor or a plumber or an electrician, stop that role. The world moves on. Nobody waits for us. Let's discover the identity. Let's figure who we are.